One is you're going to invest all of this money in a pretty, pretty expensive, pretty sophisticated piece of software that is just a sunk cost if no one uses it, right? And it's just sitting there. And if you have 1,000 licenses to whatever it may be and no one's using it, your organization isn't in a better place. And so that is one of the things that I think the gaps that we fill is like, not only are we really good, obviously, that's sort of the table stakes is you need to be good at that software. But I think we have really good data communicators that can come in there and get a team energized, focus on that, thinking about long-term strategies that don't necessarily involve us.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, this is Max Pittman from WriteForMe, and you're listening to another episode of the Business Ninjas podcast, where we meet the experts who are making things happen and scaling their businesses. And today we're talking about Cleartelligence with Mr. Pete DeOlympio, who is the marketing director at Cleartelligence. Pete, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Max. Happy to be here. Looking forward to chatting with you for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to diving into all the great things that are going on at Cleartelligence. And for those who aren't aware of Cleartelligence, they're an analytics consulting firm. The company has been around since 2011. I'm definitely excited to dive into what's going on with the organization itself. But before we dive into the organization, our community of listeners and people who are business ninjas themselves are typically entrepreneurs, executives, and sales and marketing leaders like yourself. So, as the marketing director there at Cleartelligence, I'd love it if you could kind of a little bit about your story, what brought you to this organization, and maybe some of the things you're focused on.
Yeah, sure. So my background is actually in scientific events. I was a marketing manager for a small-ish organization for a lot of years. Really enjoyed that space, really into like the technology space and to see where that is, where the pharmaceutical industry is going to go has always been a bit of an interest of mine. During the pandemic, I was, had been there for about 10 years and things were a little uncertain in the event space. So I started looking at, other options and ended up being recruited by a couple of guys at Cleartelligence. I got a call from one of their recruiters and, it seemed like a really good fit. I got to meeting some of the staff and the people there, and it was just a cool vibe. Honestly, it was like the culture fit of it really clicked right away. And then on top of that was like, hey, we've been a firm for about 10 years. We have no marketing history, really. We don't have a dedicated marketing person. We want you to be the guy. And I was like, well, that's kind of fun, and daunting, but kind of exciting, right? A chance to build something from the ground up for, a bunch of like-minded people that I thought were super smart and doing some cool stuff. Yeah, so I made the leap over almost 2 years ago now. We've been trying to grow, inbound and social and sort of, definitely wearing, spread a little thin, wearing a lot of hats, but doing a lot of things at the same time, trying to get things pointed, towards that accelerated growth. And, so far so good.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely excited to dive in like how you guys are growing and scaling. And what we've talked about ourselves is, your focuses are, a lot around like driving inbound marketing strategies, content strategy, obviously just general marketing communications, but also developing of partners. So, were all those kind of pieces part of, your interviewing process into like what, into what you were going to be bringing to the table and to what Cleartelligence wasn't doing already?
Yeah, so some of that for sure. The partner piece was definitely in place. In the analytics consulting world, that is a big component of it. So, firms like, Tableau and Snowflake and DBT Labs, AWS is one that people tend to know. That's a pretty ubiquitous one. They have these enormous ecosystems and we work closely with them. And that's certainly a big part of it. And I think when I came on, there was, some inertia towards like, not necessarily how do we decrease dependence on that dynamic, but how do we, support it and how do we complement that? So like coming in, there was really no social media presence. As much as like a standard like CPC campaign had never happened, it's just not something they did. Yeah, so just building up platforms, building up content. Content they did, it wasn't super focused. It was, there's blog posts, and some of them are really cool. They have we have some awesome content creators and thought leaders in the data visualization space. So that's more like Tableau, Power BI, and some of those tools.
Mm,
Um, but the website wasn't really optimized. It was, like I said, it was built by analytics consultants that had some time on the in their spare time, worked on the website and did some posts and stuff. So I tried to modernize that and implement some of the standard best
sure.
practices towards optimizing a website and getting the most eyes on it and focusing on exactly who we want reading it and who we're going after is a
Mhm.
a big part of it that I think they kind of intuited, but it wasn't something that they had really made intentional and
Absolutely.
repeatable.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's what it's all about, right? Is creating consistent predictability and
Mm,
opportunities, and ideally driving the right opportunities,
right.
from marketing qualified leads into sales qualified leads, uh,
Sure.
versus like just getting eyeballs to site. We want to get the right eyeballs,
Yeah,
to the
for sure.
website. Yeah. So I'd love to talk about like how you guys are doing that today and what the focus is. Let's before we jump into that specifically, I think it's good to kind of dive into like the data visualization space. Like the platform you mentioned it was built by analytics consultants. Like if you were to give me like an elevator pitch on what Cleartelligence is, like what would you say
Sure.
is the problem you guys are solving specifically?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, traditionally we were a Tableau shop, right? So we started off as being like that the people you'd call if you need your dashboard, optimized or built faster or just like built in such a way that, your decision makers can do that easily. Like so they're spending time making the strategic decisions your organization shapes. That's where we came in. We have some of the top visualization pros in the country. Really, we have two Tableau visionaries, which is like there's 50 in the world, and two of them work for us, so that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
Um, and so it started off like that's sort of what we did. And as the company has matured, one thing that we've gotten good at, and I think that differentiates Cleartelligence, is that we're good at the front end piece, but then we can work backwards too, because you'll find that you know data quality becomes an issue pretty quickly. And if your dashboard looks nice but has a bunch of bad data, then no one kind of wins. That doesn't really help anybody. And so we're differentiated in that we have that front end sort of Tableau dev uh, expertise, but then going backwards into data curation and transformation and various tools that can do that. We do strive to be uh, software agnostic. I think we have some preferences here and there, but part of that is there's a million options and there's a lot of different fits for different companies, right? um, so we sort of take that wide pool of expertise and uh, you know an ear to the client's needs, and we're not trying to fit them to a software, right? We're trying to fit their particular use case to a solution that works for them, and that's gone a long way for us. It's sort of, I would say we're like a boutique, like the Slaloms of the world or the Deloittes. People seem to know those. I would say it's like that, but maybe a little bit more
More hands-on.
client centric. Yeah.
Gotcha. And you mentioned use cases. Like, what are the typical clients look? What do they look like to use? And like, what industries are they, from? What are the challenges that they're having with data?
Yeah. So typically we're working with enterprise healthcare and life science. We don't specialize in it, but it is we have a particularly strong foothold in that space. So whether it be like medical device, industry, pharmaceutical, biotech, we have a pretty strong footprint there. Um, and I would say that there's issues are pretty standard though. Industry regardless of industry, I think there's a lot of similar challenges. One is you're going to invest all of this money in a pretty, pretty expensive, pretty sophisticated piece of software that is just a sunk cost if no one uses it, right? And it's just sitting there. And if you have 1,000 licenses to whatever it may be and no one's using it, your organization isn't in a better place. Um, and so that is one of the things that I think the gaps that we fill is like, not only are we really good, obviously, that's sort of the table stakes is you need to be good at that software. But I think we have really good data communicators that can come in there and get a team energized, focus on that, thinking about long-term strategies that don't necessarily involve us, right? So getting like a center of analytics, getting a center of excellence set up, so that organizations on a more holistic level are, running self-service analytics and doing things on their own without the assistance of, a consulting firm or whatever it may be. Maybe we check in to guide things and help, keep things on the rails, but it becomes a more self-sufficient system when the organization has buy-in, and that has to come from somewhere. And a lot of times that's where we come in.
Gotcha. That's really helpful. So it sounds like, these Tableau, licenses, very expensive, obviously, right? The more
Sure.
licenses, the bigger the cost. So you're
Yeah.
saying like a lot of the times, like are the teams working in different platforms specifically? Like, because
Sure.
obviously there's a lot of competitors, well, I don't know, competitors, but other, there's
Oh
uh,
yeah.
Power BI, there's,
Yep.
SQL, right? Like, tell me, I guess, a little about that.
Yeah. So those are sort of the Power BI and Tableau are sort of the big two. There's a few others.
Mm-hmm.
QuickSight is one. Looker, I think, is another one. And every kind of company tends to have one flavor that they prefer for one reason or the other. Um, and that's fine. I think there's pros and cons to anything, right? Sometimes it's cost. Sometimes it's connectivity to data sources or something like that, or if someone's in the cloud or if they're not. Um, so yeah, we come in, we can sort of try to standardize that, settle on like a standard going forward, um, and help them make a decision that sort of suits
Mm-hmm.
their best interest, right? Like you don't want your consulting partner to come in and just sort of, you know, you want them to be a champion for your organization, not for the software companies that support them. And
Yeah.
we have good relationships with our partners, and that's fine. And I think they realize that we don't necessarily come in there and say like, you got to do this. This is the way to go. You know, it's more about having letting the client express what their pain point is and how do we address it. And sometimes we're not the right fit. Sometimes we are.
Mm-hmm.
But I think having that approach is sort of differentiating too, where you know, I think we know what we're really good at. We know where we provide value. Um, and just having that sort of client first, sort of demeanor and mindset goes a long way to not only like building trust, but then like I find that tends to trickle down, right? So when you're trying to then do an implementation and get adoption, which is like a huge issue, like I was saying, uh, starting from a position of sort of mutual trust and working together. And embracing the team's positions on different things. It's obviously like we're consultants, right? Like they know their organization and we're going to do our best to integrate with that.
Yep.
So yeah, being collaborative and open-minded, I think, has gone a long way towards that.
Definitely. Sounds
I
like
think I
that.
may have lost the thread on your question a little, but
No, it's all good. I mean, what I'm hearing is like it's a bit of like the secret sauce, like what would make you guys stand out against
yeah,
Deloitte, right? The team members, obviously, it's people, processes, and platform, right? For the most
that's it.
part. But like your team, the hands-on approach, the expertise that you have, to actually like kind of be that champion and not to put them in a box or to put them in a specific software box. But
Right. Yeah.
it sounds like why a customer would go with you over maybe the competition.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Like I said, I think that the technical skills is sort of table stakes. I think that when you're looking at a consulting partner, your thought isn't like, well, but they're probably okay. I think that obviously we need to check that box. We're super competent team, super experienced. I think that's maybe a differentiator too, is most of our team skews senior, people that have the track record in those verticals, whether it's finance or pharma, CPG. We've kind of seen a lot of stuff over the course of 10 years and done it at a very embedded, very strategic level.
Definitely.
And that all spins up a lot of opportunities, because another, to your point earlier about like what are some of the problems, you might have like your operations department might have a really robust analytics environment, and they might, their Tableau or Power BI is optimized and people are sharing data and it's governance, the governance is done well. But that might not talk at all to sales or marketing or HR. Like those systems can be disparate. And so, I think as we start to grow and mature our infrastructure on my side of things, it's like, how do we get those internal stakeholders talking to each other, championing for us? I think that there are some obstacles there, and but also a lot of opportunities, to say, here's what we're doing in the supply chain space. Here's what we can do for sales and marketing. And so I think that's part of my approach going forward, is showing not just, that we're really good in this one specialized thing, but that we can be bring a lot of value to different arms of the organization.
So as the marketing director, it sounds like a challenge that you're working on right now is that growth and maturity and getting the message and education out to the market.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's that, it's building the case study type of stuff like you see. I mean, every company's got their page of, here's our logo wall, here's our testimonials, like, and you have to do some of that stuff. And I think some of it is doing it the right way as well. I don't think people are really poring over case studies. Maybe they are, maybe I'm just not. But finding a way to get that messaging out there, showing, the social proof of what you're doing in a way that's not like, hitting people over the head with it. I think nuance goes a long way. And so I'm working on that to build out, how do we share the story, right, from the client's perspective?
Yeah.
And that's something that we've made progress on. I think people are starting to see us out in the marketplace a little bit more. Getting the team engaged and sharing what they're working on is, getting that sort of, engagement, organizational engagement has gone a long way. I've sort of spearheaded those things. And, showing my sort of subject matter people that, people actually want to hear from them. They have something to add. They might be in a consulting role, but they're really kind of data thought leaders in a sense. They can bring a lot of content to the table, whether it just be like their lived experience of communicating requirements to people. We had a blog post a couple months ago that really did well, and it was just like communication tools. And it's like, that's not like super technical, right? That's not like this inside baseball, here's the Tableau code. This is a sort of an interpersonal thing. It's something we're really good at, and it resonated. And this is a person who's brilliant, but not the first person to like post it on LinkedIn, post it on Twitter. And so it's kind of cool to be able to come in and sort of say like, no, these people want to hear from you. Like, you have a lot to say. And so propping people up in that sense and getting them more confident in sharing their expertise. I think we're starting to see the benefits of it over the last, 6 to 12 months.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm right there with you. Like, people want to be fed like articles and thought leadership versus ads these days. Right. People don't want to, they want to make their own buying decisions. They want to do their own research. They want to be educated, especially like when there's a need and challenge out there that they're looking to solve. Right. So it's ensuring that we can get the right information in front of those people. It sounds like maybe you guys are focused a little bit on like an account-based marketing approach. Yeah.
No, that's right. That's certainly part of it. I would say that, client referrals are one of our big channels. That's always been something that we've excelled with. It's not uncommon for a head of analytics or a director of analytics to like take a new position and bring us with them, right? And I think that is something that, like, to build marketing around that is sort of challenging. It's certainly not something that they would think of, like, oh, well, so and so is the chief data officer and we've worked with him at 3 different companies. Like, who cares? I'm like, well, people in this decision making process can see that as quite the endorsement, right? Because we're now shifting maybe industries or shifting slightly different needs, different pain points. And we're pretty good at that. So trying to communicate that to the team that, like, no, these are valuable insights that clients are going to use to build their decision making sort of decision tree off of. It's what we're good at in terms of technology. It's how we work with people. It's that client experience. So you got to communicate that well. And it's it's meeting them where they are, right? You can't be everything to everyone, and I don't think we don't try to do that. And I think it, you start getting into like attribution and stuff like that. It's like, oh, well, what came from marketing and what is a more interpersonal thing. It's like, well, I don't know, but the fact that we're deepening the footprint is good enough for now. I think that's, something that, and especially as the solo marketing guy, right? That's sort of fine. If it's not going right to my name, it's a company win is a company win, and I can live with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when thinking about like your different pipelines that you're focused on, Pete, right? There's obviously continuing to build out the referral network, continue to build out your partners. I'm sure you're doing some selling through partners as well.
Oh, sure.
But what about like, and then you're also focused on inbound, and then cold
Yes.
out, right? Focused on inbound. And then is there an element of cold outreach like that sales is focusing on as well?
I don't think as much. It's not something that we do a lot of. I'm sure it happens. But yeah, like I said, it's mostly, most leads are gonna come through people that have found us through Tableau or through Snowflake or some of these other partners. But I think that becomes a marketing win because if you go on the Tableau website and put in, even if you want someone in New England, that's a long list of people, and so they need to have some of that brand awareness to think like, oh, the Cleartelligence people from, maybe the LinkedIn post from their owner or from their principal consultant or the weird marketing guy that says strange stuff on LinkedIn occasionally. We've done a lot of that. We've seen inbound increase quite dramatically. It wasn't part of the business when I started. At my interview, I asked like, how many leads are you getting, a month or a week? And they kind of laughed, and they're like, that's not really the nature of the business. And it's, now we're getting a handful a month, and, they're not all home runs. Some of them don't go anywhere. The closed one ratio is going to be, you're always going to want to improve that. But it's starting to take hold. And I think then to your point about the cold outreach, I don't think we're at that maturity level yet, but I think as we continue to scale and maybe bring on other organizations through acquisition, we had a funding round in January. So things are really kind of accelerating. And so I think that making sure that brand voice of kind of like, meet them where they are, address relevant challenges, and not really, I'm trying to think of a good way to put it, but like to be people forward and not software forward. I think that'll go a long way to making the cold outreach when we get to that much more effective.
Yeah. Well, then showing the expertise, I think, is just the biggest piece to like continue to address those challenges and showing that you guys are experts in an authority in an already kind of crowded-ish, space dominated by major players.
Yeah, no, it's tough. I mean, we're relatively small. There's under 100 of us at the moment. And some of these organizations have, tens of thousands of people. So you got to be pretty good to stand out. And I think that, having a sort of, like I mentioned, brand voice, and that sort of just having that, keeping it about people, I feel strongly about personally, just, and then incorporating some of the more tactical things with whether it's ABM or, having some top of funnel stuff on your blog, some conversion stuff on your blog, trying to keep it a mix of that homespun thing that kind of set us aside, and then just trying to mature it gradually as it comes along.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's definitely, I'm sure like, now that you're a couple of years in, like you're finally, it feels like almost like hitting a stride with creating some predictability with all of with the pipeline that you guys are developing.
For sure.
What would you say is like next, for, I guess let's focus really quickly for you in marketing. Like what do you like, what's something you want to be celebrating on the marketing team a year from now? What about something for the business as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's new partner channel wins. I think we want to see, make sure we're still in that cutting edge. Tableau is a legacy product. It's a really strong legacy product, but it is that, and they continue to modernize and add new stuff, which is really cool. Being able to push the envelope with that, if anything new is coming in, I think we need to stay current on those things, and just to, I guess ultimately a little self-serving, but yeah, keep the inbound coming. I want to see that, that conversion rate continue to grow, and despite the fact that we're getting more leads, I guess is the dream, right? So Absolutely. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, there's obviously a lot of KPIs and metrics that can be tracked. I think that the biggest thing is to ensure that you're increasing your conversion rates on inbound is to create as many conversion points as possible on the website. So that way people can, where they are and where, like on the main page versus your resource page versus your solution pages, and just making it really easy for those individuals to find time or to find, the right person to
for sure.
Yeah. Is definitely the best practice, because at the end of the day, like, you don't want to make it hard for someone to reach out to you guys when they have that need, right? So
for sure.
Yeah. So obviously the content can drive people there, SEO can drive people there. And then leveraging the website is not just like a brochure, but actually as a place that is more of like a marketplace for conversations almost.
Yeah, no, I've only recently done a sort of top of funnel, like, what is it that you do anyway? We've not been good about that. A lot of our content is super technical, really for people that might not even be interested in a consulting firm. It's just like, here's some best practice stuff regarding, data visualization. And if you're a business intelligence manager at another organization, you may not need to call us because of the content on our site. And that's fine, right? But trying to gradually create a broader net will go a long way to, like you said, meeting people where they are, giving the most opportunities to engage with us.
Love it. Well, looking forward to seeing how things evolve with you, Pete, and seeing how you guys continue to grow and scale. Sounds like, yes, you say you're small, but still a 100-person company and been around for 10 years, almost 11 years now at this point. It's exciting.
Not bad. Yeah.
As we wrap things up, Pete, love it if you can, give our listeners, the best place for them to find you guys. Obviously, cleartelligence.com. Feel free to plug everything you got going on.
Yeah, no. So we're going to be, we're sort of all over the place. Our big event in October is Chart Champ. I highly recommend anyone in the sort of analytics community check that out. It's a lot of fun. It's going to be at Boston University in October. It's free to attend. It's super kind of low key. That'll be cool. And we're doing a lot more stuff with our partners there. They've been really backing us and doing some, web events for us. So definitely just check out the Cleartelligence LinkedIn page. Is probably the easiest place. You can always follow me at Pete DeOlympio. But yeah, no, we have a lot of events coming up. We're doing some stuff with women in consulting. Even that's going to be at Simmons College. That's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, no, check us out. The LinkedIn is probably the way to go. We're on Twitter, but not as much. So that's the place to go.
Perfect. Yeah. Everyone check out Cleartelligence, hit up Pete, let him know you heard the podcast, and I'm looking forward to see how they can help and, help you as a consultant, right? Like their role, Cleartelligence, right, is to really help in being a champion for your data, right? I think it's
end-to-end analytics, right? So that's from server to end user, curating, transforming data, making it work for your company is sort of what we do.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. You can say it better than I can.
I'm getting there.
Yeah, awesome. Anything else?
Awesome. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate the time. It's great chatting with you.
You too, Pete. Anything else before we wrap up that maybe we haven't covered that you want to share?
No, I think you nailed it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, this has been a great conversation, Pete, and appreciate you sharing your story. I definitely learned a lot about you and what you guys have going on there at Cleartelligence and how you're solving data challenges and with your team and with your clients. So appreciate you being a part of the Business Ninjas podcast and
it's fun. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thanks very much.
No worries. Everyone have a great rest of the day. That wraps up another episode of the Business Ninjas podcast. Thank you so much for listening.